Now, today on World Traveler Cooking, we're going to make Belgian fries. Now, if you're from the US, of course, you're very, very familiar with French fries, or as you call them in the US. A lot of people will say these originally come from Belgium. It's a little more complicated than that, but we're going to make Belgian fries. So this year, in fact, I did go down to Brussels for a conference, and I got a chance to try their fries there, and they're a bit different. So we're going to make fries of that sort. Now, European fries come in basically three broad different types. There's the British chips, which I will cover another time. There's Flemish or Belgian fries, which we're going to make today. And then there are French fries, which are a little different, and they're not quite what you're used to seeing in the US either. But they're there also. What characterizes Belgian fries is their shape. They tend to be shorter, stubbier, and also their flavor, which is managed by frying twice, typically, especially in the higher end, in two different kinds of oil or fat. And today, basically after talking to a bunch of people, I've settled on a second frying fat, in this case being beef tallow. So we're going to use that. In contrast, British chips are boiled and then fried, and French fries themselves, the French version, are single fried, but using a different method, and they're a lot more picky on the types of potatoes that can be used. That will be another. That'll be another type as well. That'll be another video later. Before we begin, I want to talk a little bit about types of potatoes. In the US, my American friends are probably quite familiar with the russet potato. The russet potato is basically more oblong than normal. It's longer than normal. It's considered probably the best one for American-style French fries. But it doesn't really have a European counterpart. These are, in addition to the shape changes, they're also extremely starchy. You can think of potatoes as going on one side from a very waxy potato, like the small red potatoes you can get in the United States, through, on the other extreme, these russet potatoes that are very, very starchy, very mealy. Much more mealy than, for example, the mealy potatoes in Germany. So potatoes exist on that scale, if you will. And your European potatoes, even the mealy ones, tend to be a little bit less mealy than, say, the russet. So if you want to make a really good European-style French fry, you probably don't want to go like the McDonald's route and go with the russet Burbank. So, so what I've decided to do here is make 6 potatoes worth. So what I have is I have 6 potatoes. These kind of look like russets from the outside, but actually they haven't been washed. That's fine. I'm going to wash them and then I'm going to peel them. We have our first frying oil, which in this case is, we just typically are going to use a vegetable oil of some kind. Our second frying oil, typically on the higher end, you're going to use an animal fat for this. Partly because it has a lower flash point, but also because it's going to add a little bit more richness to your flavor. So use the animal fat, it will add richness to the flavor. And in this case I'm using beef tallow. If you don't want to use beef tallow, you could use another animal fat. I would suggest maybe chicken fat. I'll do another video at some point that will cover rendering that. And if you want to make a vegetarian version, then I would probably use clarified butter. Or even in the extreme, you could probably use like a virgin olive oil. It's probably the only case where frying something in olive oil makes, like extra virgin olive oil or virgin olive oil makes sense. And the only reason why that makes sense is because you're looking for this lower temperature frying oil. And then finally, we will sprinkle them with a bit of salt. So I'm going to wash these, I'm going to peel them, then we'll come back and we'll talk about how Belgian fries are cut. As I say, they're shorter and stubbier, and that typically means we're going to make them from a cross-section like this rather than a cross-section like this. Be back once these are peeled. Now for good Belgian fries, they're going to be about this long. So what we're actually going to do in this case is we're going to slice the potato this way. And then we will take these sections, we will slice them this way. And we'll get matchsticks, as I say, 3 to 5 millimeters, maybe a little more. That looks like maybe 7 on the side. And then these will then get fried first in our vegetable oil and then in the other oil. So as soon as these go in, I'll show you. So we're going to heat this oil up on a low flame. That might be medium-low if you're on a non-gas range. And just want to wait until it gets pretty hot. And then we'll fry these maybe a third at a time. In this oil, I have, I don't know, maybe like 2 centimeters of oil in there. We'll see, I can add more oil if I need it. Now, one way I tell whether it's hot is I just add one piece of potato. That looks like I'm going to need some more oil. And I basically wait until it's frying very well. So, yeah, there we go. And once it's frying really well, then I can add more. So here, it looks like it's frying okay, so I'm going to start adding about a handful at a time. And the goal of this first frying is really to fry the potatoes through. Then we will take them out of this oil and we'll let them rest and they'll get very soggy. So that's probably about as much as I want to put in this oil at this point. I'm going to cook them, and when I come back and strain them, then I'll add the next set in. So here you can see that the skin is just starting to brown up just a little bit, and that's a good indication that now's the time we want to take these off and put the next set in. So I'm going to do that, and once I've fried all these potatoes to this point, then I'll be back with the next stage. So now we are melting the beef fat, again under a low flame, and I'll be back as soon as that's hot. We can add our once fried potatoes into that. Okay, so the beef tallow is melted and my one fry is frying relatively well now. So let's go ahead and add some more of these. I'm adding the ones that I fried first because it's good to let the potatoes rest and become soggy. If you want them to become crisp later, they need a chance to release their water. So here we are with our first batch, and I'll be back as soon as these are done frying the second time. We're going to fry these until they're very nicely golden brown. Now, you'll want to stir this occasionally, and as you do, you will feel the weight and texture of the fries changing over time. Well, they start off kind of sluggish, if you will, and so forth. They end up a lot lighter and a lot more firm. And here they are already nice and firm. So I'm just waiting for a little more brown to show up, and then I'm taking these off. So to my mind, these are looking pretty done now, so I'm going to take them off and put the second batch in. And while the second batch is cooking, I'll go ahead and do my taste test. But look how nice this is. Then basically I'll salt them. Well, of course I'll salt them before I fry them. Of course, you should salt the fries a bit and maybe toss them around in the salt a little bit. And then I guess we're ready to eat them. In some cases, you might actually need to let them cool down a little bit because otherwise they may be just a little too hot. But at any rate, on to the taste test. And now for the taste test. These are really nice. The thinner ones, I'm going to try a thinner one in a second. These thicker ones have a really nice texture. They're not overly dry. That might be a problem if you're keeping them out too long. They remind me of a really, really good steak fry. Now I'm going to try a thin one. These are delicious. The animal fat adds a little bit of extra richness that you wouldn't get from many of these other fries. These are far and away better than any fries that you can get at the grocery store or at a fast food restaurant. They're really, really good. Now, if you find this content useful and interesting, I hope I've earned a like and a subscription from you, and feel free to check out my Patreon page if you'd like to support my work. There you can find early access to many of my videos. But if not, feel free to share or comment here. I always enjoy hearing from you. In particular, if you make a dish like this and you do it a little differently, I'd love to hear from you. Though, of course, this dish is very specific to Belgian fries. I do think I cut them just a little bit thick here. Anyway, this is one of my favorite fry styles. Love to hear what you think. And as I say, I think we all become better cooks by sharing tips. At any rate, recipes in the description. Bon appetit, and see you next week.